Welcome back to Open Topics, episode number 15. Yeah, I haven't done one of these in quite some time. I looked up basically what was the last time I did a video for the series, and that was back in February, before all the pandemic started. Yep, this I'm talking about. Well, Marvel has canceled a couple titles recently, and DC has announced they're canceling 3 titles soon. The 2 titles that got canceled from Marvel are Steikeforce and Black Panther and the Age of Wakenda. Now, Steikeforce was written by Tina Howard, the same writer who also writes one of the X books. Yes. Yeah, that's not a joke. That's what Tina Howard does. And let's see. She works on Excalibur. Really good series. I highly recommend it. Yeah. Now, the thing is, Steikeforce was comprised of a small handful of people. Mostly put this series spun out of a mini-series from War of the Realms. Yes. Yeah, it seems the War of the Realms was like an event that pretty much sprung a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it started Jane Foster's time as Valkyrie. It also gave Punisher a mini-series called Punisher Kill Crew. Really good mini-series, by the way. I'm trying to think, what else was it? And of course this. Oh yeah, and also they also Agents of Atlas series during that particular event, which that gave them an actual miniseries. Steikeforce was the only one that actually started as a miniseries for War of the Realms that later sprung out to an actual ongoing series. The whole purpose of Steikeforce in book was having this team, a group of people, look for pieces of this thing called the Black Bifrost, which was created by a scientist that worked for Malekith, the Accursed, who got killed during War of the Realms, and basically trying to limit any information about this particular thing. The group is led by the Winter Soldier, which, that's interesting. Bucky Barnes leading an actual team. I mean, yeah, he's been on a roster before. Yeah, he was part of the New Avengers. And he was part of the main team of Avengers at one point. I believe he actually led the team. Yes. Second team he's led. Now the other group members are Angela, Thor's smoking hot sister, Blade, Damian Hellstrom, Spectrum, Spider-Woman, and Wicked of the Young Avengers. Interesting. Now this is one of 2 titles canceled because of the pandemic, and it was supposed to have a tie into Empire. Yep, it was supposed to have a tie into Empire. But this title got canceled after, like, the next issue is supposed to come out, and this is next month. Issue 9 is the last one. Now, mostly put for this one, they were just basically, like, gathering pieces of the Bifrost. Damien Hirst was supposedly killed, then he was discovered alive at a nightclub run by his beautiful sister, Santana. Yeah. And this, by far, was a really fun series to read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was interesting to not only seeing Winter Soldier in a team again, but Spider-Woman. Yes, this was the first time since her time with the Avengers. Well, when I think when Hickman was writing the book, that was the last time she was part of the actual team. Because she's been absent for her team for quite a while. Spectrum, last team she was part of was the Ultimates. Yep. Blade, as far as I can tell, this is one of 2 books she was featured in. Yeah, the other of course, now he's still being featured in the Avengers book by Jason Aaron, so he's still around. Angela, this is technically for her second group book she's been part of. The first one being the briefly ongoing series that was As Guardians of the Galaxy, written by Colin Bunn, which is a really good title. That got canceled in 10 issues because of War of the Realms. As in the case of Damian Hellstrom, this by far is the first group I can think of he's been part of. Blade, the Night Stalkers. This group is technically like the 3rd group he's been part of. Yeah. Now as for Wicked, he was the last seen part of the, I believe he was part of the US Avengers. That was the last time he was part of the group. And I think from what I heard, there was plans to have him basically take on his fiancée, Hulkling, because of this stuff related to Empire. But the pandemic is mainly the reason why the series is getting canceled. It's not because the premise is not interesting. I mean, in my opinion, if I was basically regularly buying comic books, this is one comic I would definitely buy because I love these freaking characters. I mean, who would not want to buy a book featuring Blade the Vampire Hunter or the Winter Soldier Spider Woman? But there's been a theory I've had for years. It seems that whenever Blade is on an ongoing series or has his own, it gets canceled. Yes. Apparently, Blade basically being on the book is a book being cursed. The Avengers, surprisingly, is a book that is immune to that curse. Yeah, but that's not the reason why. I mean, take like something books he's a part of that got canceled quickly. I mean, he's had several ongoing series, a lot of whom barely lasted for a year. He was part of Night Stalker, which lasted for 18 issues. He had a brief ongoing series in 2006, canceled with 12 issues. There was also Captain Britain MI13. He came up in issue 5, and then like 7 issues later, the series got canceled. Yep. And this series, I liked it. It was a really good premise of a series. Too bad it's going to end with the very next issue. The other one from Marvel that they just canceled, I was surprised they canceled it because I read the most recent issue, was really good. Black Panther Agents of Wakanda. Now, this was basically written by... I thought it was going to be written by Jason Aaron because technically he did create this group. But no. This book was not written by him at all. Which I thought, that was interesting. Let's see if I can find out exactly who wrote this book. Because it's interesting, though, who wrote this one. Let's see. I know it's not written by the creator of the current writer of Black Panther, who's leaving soon. Let's see if I can find it here. If this thing would type properly. Let's see. The writer of the series was... Let's see. It was... Jim Zeb. Yeah, Jim Zeb basically was the writer of this book. Which, yeah, that's interesting given the fact how underrated of a writer he is. Now, why do I think he's an underrated writer? Mainly due to the fact, like, anytime basically the man basically is on a book, it seems as though Marvel just doesn't care to promote his books. For some reason. Yeah, that's just my opinion when it comes to him. The group is comprised of, has a very interesting lineup. It's comprised of Fat Cobra. Yes, this is a character come by Brubaker and Matt Fraction. Mockingbird. American Eagle. Yeah, he's a very minor character. Gorilla Man. Brew. Kazar. And Okadi, who was the leader of that group of female bodyguards for the Black Panther. And she's the director of the Agents of Wakanda. They also have on standby the Wasp. Yes, the Wasp part of the group. Along with Rod Solomon. Now, here's the strange thing about these two characters. Now, the other ones I just named, they were regular features in the book. Wasp and Rod Solomon were very rarely featured in the book. This book got canceled also due to the fact because of the pandemic. Not because it was bad. This was a really good series. I thoroughly enjoyed reading the thing when it was coming out. And yeah, book got canceled. And it seems as though Marvel is just basically that company that doesn't like promoting Jim Zeb's work because it seems like any time this guy is in the book gets canceled. Either due to a lot of time due to lack of marketing, or they simply just don't care. And yet Marvel keeps giving the guy work. Despite the fact that I'm sure some people probably do enjoy the man's work, along with Zeb Wells. Yet these two guys, I kind of figure as though, are very underrated writers who basically write very good comics in Marvel, and yet their comics keep getting canceled for some reason. Yeah, I'm not really sure why though, but in the case of these two books, the pandemic's mainly the reason why. Now for DC, they're canceling 3 books. Batgirl at issue 50. Batman the Outsiders, at issue 17, and Harley Quinn at issue 75. Now, let's start with Batman the Outsiders, a book that, in my opinion, has been really good. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the reason why people have I think the reason why the series get canceled, I don't think the pandemic had anything to do with the cancellation at all. No, I think it's mainly due to nothing with the Outsiders. No, I think people are not liking the fact that almost this entire run is just the Outsiders versus Ra's al Ghul. And probably like, there are other villains they can fight besides Ra's. Why does Brian Hill fight all of them? That's one theory I have why people are not buying the book. Another theory is, people think of the Outsiders, this lineup is not what they think of. It's a very small lineup. That here's the thing. Over the course of 17 issues, nobody has joined the roster officially. Because the roster is made up of these following people: Batman, Black Lightning, Katana, Orphan, and Signal Man, and the Signal. Which, yeah, it's a 5-person team. Which I'm like, that's interesting, and yet the Outsiders know for having a much larger roster. Like, at one point, I think they had about 10, 12 people part of the roster. Maybe Brian Hill is not used to writing a large group of people. That's probably the reason why I kept it small. That's another theory I have why people weren't buying the book. Because they thought the team was just too small to be the Outsiders. Another theory, because these are not the Outsiders they grew up with. That's just my theory. And if you look at it, basically, some of the other people who part of the Outsiders over the years, I mean, Geoforce made an appearance in the Katana miniseries. They were part of the Suicide Squad Most Wanted stuff. But as in the case of Metamorpho, he's off in the Terrifics. But as to why the other members not here, I have no idea. I get the reason why they ended Orphan and Duke Thomas and Signal. Cassandra Cain has been part of the Outsiders before, during what was known as Batman Outsiders the previous time by Chuck Dixon. So, yeah, she has history with the group. Duke Thomas is probably by far the only one who actually is the original member to the group. Because part of this group, well, the thing is, the group had not been seen since 2011. When this series was launched last year, I was so happy the fact we finally had an Outsiders comic book for the first time in 8 years. Yes, a long time being without an Outsiders comic book. And yeah, sad to see the book go. As the other two books, they're also Bat books as well. Batgirl, I do have a couple theories of why the book basically wasn't selling too well. One theory I have is the fact the book barely feels part of the. It doesn't feel at all as part of the Batman like connected books that a lot of the other books basically love doing. Yeah, it feels barely in connection. And also, apparently, Batgirl is not allowed to participate in crossovers. Well, or the character herself does appear in crossovers, but does her book? Nope. The last time I can think of her book was part of an actual event was 0 Year. That was the last official time. That was back in 2013. That was the last official time, and that was when Gail Simone was writing the book. And that was the last special time, because it seems as though as soon as Gail Simone's left, apparently, whoever's editing the book apparently says, no, we're not having my book tied into crossovers anymore. We're just basically doing our own thing and just basically not feel in connection to DC Universe. Now, that's one theory I have why people are buying a book. Another is the fact that she changed her costume. Yes, now I think the costume looks great. I think where they fail is with the mask. Where it's just a down mask and a pair of bat ears and hair. Yeah, this is very lazy. And I think that whoever designed this costume should really thought a little bit harder about this costume. This costume is the costume is fine. It's the mask is freaking terrible. I thought people from my group for Discord, Awesome Universe, even they agree. The costume is great. They fail with the mask. They totally agree. Her previous costume, the one that was designed for the Brandon Fancher Batgirl one, that costume was really good. I like that costume. It felt like more like a jacket a lot of the time, but it was a very unique costume. Color scheme for this one, in my opinion, was heavily inspired by the Batman animated series. Though with the Bat logo probably inspired by Frank Miller. Yeah. But they really should have thought a little harder when it comes to the mask. That's just my opinion. Now, as in the case of Harley Quinn, it was probably time for her to go anyways because 75 is a pretty high number to end at, especially for DC lately. Well, at least DC is having an issue have this high. I mean, here's the thing. Here's a question that a lot of people probably ask. When was the last time Marvel had a series where it started issue 1 and went to 75? The last comic I saw that Marvel had that went that high was Astonishing X-Men. And the book got canceled not long after that. That's no joke. That was the last official time that any Marvel book ever reached that high. Yes, to have a series that basically would consider issue 75, but not on the frickin' cover. Actually, no, there was one other time that Marvel did do that. Well, it was mainly due to the Marvel Legacy thing, and that was Iron Fist. Yes, Iron Fist. Yeah, and the thing with, I forgot to mention with Batgirl, her comics published regularly since 2009, while in the case of Harley Quinn, they brought back the series back in 2013 under the awesome leadership of Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. Before it had the Frank Terry, and now it's under Sam Humphries. And here's the thing, despite the writer change, it still feels like the same book. Which, yeah, you can't say that the same for a lot of other DC books. Yeah, this book, I don't think is much a problem with this one being not connected to the regular DC universe, having to do its own thing. It's fine. As far as I know, no one's had a problem with it, and the book has been fine for it. Batgirl should have had connection to the regular Batman comic books. If you look at, let's say, another comic book that I canceled a couple years ago, Batwoman is a good example of a series that should not have been canceled at all. It was really good. It actually felt like it was connected to the Batman universe. It had good writing, good artwork. Heck, even I talked to Margie Bent about this. Yeah, she actually liked my opinion when it comes to her book. The fact that it felt so connected. Batgirl had barely any connection. Though I did hear an article that came out recently that Marguerite Scott, the second writer of this run for Batgirl, apparently was never invited to go to the Bat conferences for some reason. Yeah, all the other Batman writers allowed to go, but not her for some reason. That's probably the reason why the book felt so, shoved to the side. Now, I don't blame the writers of Batgirl for why it feels the way it does. It's probably due to the fact that the book is basically, let's just say, not very well thought of by some people at DC, possibly. But also, another theory that why Batgirl's canceled, I think a lot of the time the stories really make no sense at all. And I guess that people are not really big fans of Batgirl hanging out in a place called Burnside. I mean, if you look at, let's say, the first few volumes of the series, we had Cassandra Cain as Batgirl for the first couple volumes, and Stephanie Brown. Yeah, even during Gail Simone's run, she was headquartered in Gotham, and she actually felt like the book was connected to the overall Bat books. It seems as though once Brendan Fraser and Bacon Cohen came on board, it's like, nope, we're no longer connected to anything, and we're not having our book be part of any crossover. And here's the thing. You know the storyline War of Jokes? I don't think Batgirl is part of that event. I don't think so, no. She might be, I don't know, but it might be the first time. Yeah. But in the case of Harley Quinn, probably time for it to go. I mean, think of it overall, in just 7 years. This book put out 100... By the time the book ends with issue 75, it would have put out 105 issues overall. In just 7 years, which that is amazing. And if you count the first line for the series, I thought about it in my head. This is exactly 143 issues. Heck, even if you have it last for 74 more issues, it probably ended with issue 82. Which probably is not a good number to end at, because that was a number that count when volume 3 ended at was issue 82. And my guess is the writers of Harley Quinn don't want that to happen. And fun fact about Harley Quinn, her book is she's one of 4 female characters to have a 100+ issue comic book. Wonder Woman, Catwoman, Batgirl, and Harley Quinn. Apparently, these four are the only ones allowed to have 100 plus issue comic because almost everybody else has tried to have them, keeps getting canceled. It's like DC a lot of the time doesn't care about the female characters. Marvel, on the other hand, I'd say maybe one, actually two I could think of who've had 100 plus issue of the comic books, and that's She-Hulk and Captain Marvel. Well, Carol Danvers mostly. But no, I think the one that come close to being up the highest probably the Kamala Khan that's Marvel. Because even like almost everybody else, nobody's got to 100 issues yet. Yeah, but not much else to say about this. I know my friend Tibia basically did give his thoughts on Batgirl ending issue 50, which I think the book should just take a different direction. 50 is an interesting number to end at because it seems as though that this is another comic book that cancels that number. This is by far the third comic book I've seen who ended that number for DC. Because the first two were Green Arrow and Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad came back late last year. Green Arrow has not come back yet. So is it possible Batgirl might get relaunched? It's possible, to say the least. But if it comes back, please, writers, have it feel like it's connected to the DC, to the regular universe, instead of just basically being a side thing and just barely have a connection. Because I like it when books have a connection to other books. It's part of a shared universe. Why not do that? And it almost feels a lot of the time the writers don't know what to do with Batgirl or who her supporting characters are. Yeah. But not much else to say about this. So yeah, that's definitely my last video for tonight, so stay tuned for tomorrow. For as of right now, unless of course Steikeforce releases another video episode tomorrow, dubbed, another review for One Piece. Hey, Topic Comic Corner, okay? See you next video. Bye.